My kids said the internet was off today because of the wind.
Oh,
Sunspots
I
also.
wonder if it'll work for mine.
They'll probably sit there and try it.
No,
Try it.
So-
no, they will take one look at me and go,
There's solar flares.
When's it gonna come back on? I don't know.
if it's broken, we're the ones that fix it, so really.
We're gonna
Did you know
reconvene,
it was unplugged? No, I didn't.
3:36.
26.
Oh, sorry, 3:26.
So,
I think there was no action taken in closed session. We'll please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now go to comment section. Comments and announcements by board members. Jessica, anything to report?
I'll save it for next week.
Okay. Sandra?
I finished my master's in governance training, so now I get to have my certificate. I'm very proud.
Congratulations.
It was a very long process.
Bill LeBron?
I have no comments at this time.
And I will myself save mine for next week as well. Comments and announcements by administration.
Well, tonight, we have quite a bit coming out of curriculum and instruction for the past 4 to 5 months. We have been working hard on our LCAP, meeting with our community members, meeting with our teachers, meeting with our classified staff. And also putting our draft together, meeting with the county, even doing a final review leading up to tonight's meeting or today's meeting in review to make sure that we are hitting all the new requirements. The LCAP has been updated this year as far as with a new template and new requirements from the state. So there's been quite a bit of work that has gone into bringing the draft and then the final in a couple weeks. So that'll be coming up tonight. We'll also be discussing West Ed, our contract for the district. It's a district-wide contract. And that will be for our PLC training for our Wednesdays with our teachers that will be happening 2 times a month. They'll be working on training to make sure that we have our processes in place, that we're basically able to follow the PLC process, use our data, divide interventions to really focus our instruction moving forward. So that's coming out tonight. There is an additional 2 goals on the equity multiplier, which are it's extra funding for our 2 middle schools because they qualify for differentiated assistance. So those schools will have their own goals on the new LCAP, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. We had our annual visit from DOJ and we had some very positive reviews. We're in the process of going through the judgment and possibly looking at any items that we were 2 years considered successful in implementation for 2 years that we will no longer have to be reporting those. So we're in the process of going through that right now, being able to check things off the list and focus on. And the conversation that happens with DOJ is the fact that just because we have successfully met an agreement doesn't mean that our processes are going to stop. It just means that the reporting part of it back to DOJ doesn't have to happen, but we still do what we're doing. It's not going to change. So
Well, we started some of these programs before the DOJ even recommended them,
absolutely.
so.
And so we will have another meeting in the end of the summer to decide, we'll have another plan to present in August to the board to show you what we did as far as where we're at with the judgment, what areas, what year we are for successful completion, which things we need to report and which things we don't, and things we need to work on. So that will happen as well. And then we're in the process of working through the grant as well with positions and securing the funding. So, and there's still more to come as the meeting goes.
Thank you.
For me, so I attended both of the promotions, I thought they both were great, so kudos to those two sites, middle school sites who put on those promotions. It was very nice to be in an air-conditioned state theater for the studios, for sure. Also, last week, we started summer school, and extended school year, which is your special ed, summer school session. Lauren Albert and I run those two programs. We are housed at Stanford. So this Friday, we're gonna have a carnival water park theme day. So if any of you wanna come out and get wet, we'll be there between 10 and 12 there at Stanford out on the grass.
And what day is that?
Friday, this Friday.
Andrew James.
Good evening. Thank you guys for attending our special meeting. So we have a couple things we have to do 2 times in June. So that's what we have to do in June. We had a critical incident response training put on by SEC out of Michigan this last week. Where they brought in a law enforcement professional who came and did assessments at all of our sites of any kind of both physical and procedural deficiencies we have in our ability to deal with threats of violence from outside people, natural disasters, all those different things. The training that we had about 30 people there, was really positive. Got a really nice job. We did do the fake, where they come in and you're in a shooter situation, but not real super overkill with it. But he did a really nice job. I think the staff that were there appreciated what they had learned. We're looking forward to seeing what their formal recommendations are of their threat assessment. They did feel like our district having the fencing, having classroom doors that were shut and locked during school, put us already in kind of a secure mode already. So he was pretty impressed with that piece, and he came from Michigan, so he'd only really seen schools that had hallways, interior hallways. He hadn't been to a school where it was all the doors open to the outside. So it was really, really interesting. I took a lot away from it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they have. And if everybody else, I did a little survey, and if everybody else felt positive about our interactions with them, we'll probably be bringing them back to do some other types of training on a similar types of topics. But for this whole training and threat assessment, that was a grant that I wrote with our workers' comp. So it was all paid for. And the guy, we flew him all the way out. I don't know if we'll fly the guy out again, except for maybe once a year type of a thing, but. And then the other thing, I wanted to introduce to you Shari Carrillo. She's sitting right here. She is our new coordinator of food services, taking over for Paul Maybe, who's retiring. She comes to us from Rayleigh's in the Grass Valley area, and she lives here in town. So I wanted her to come and meet you guys. We'd already discussed, she's gonna be coming and presenting maybe once a year, some different things about the food services program. So you guys have a good look, so.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. I just wanted to come today and formally introduce myself to everyone. I'm really excited about this new role. I know I have Sarah Larson that's joining me also in the food services department, and she's new to the role, taking over for Tammy Deal. So we're both really excited about bringing some fresh ideas and really getting some excitement around the food service department and childhood nutrition. And we're both really excited for the 24-25 year. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, comments by the public. This time, the board will extend invitations to interested parties who wish to speak in matters which are school related. For those attending remotely to wish to comment, or use the raise your hand button to be called on. So there's no, are there any? Okay. Public hearing session. So the 2023-24 local control and accountability plan update.
So one requirement of closing out the 23-24 LCAP, which is also the beginning of starting the writing for the new 24-25, is reviewing all the data from the 23-24. And if you look at the packet that I gave you, we have the annual updated highlights, and I went through each of the goals and put specific areas that we'll address on the annual update. And what we do as far as reviewing the data, seeing how well we've done, and seeing if this goal needs to be continued on to the next. So goal number 1 from the 23-24. Last year, we had a very tough time with finding teachers that were considered highly qualified. We ended up being in the 80%, if you remember, at the mid-year when I reported out. We have been able to hire, and I look at us being closer to 95 to 100 next year already. I can only think of a few that we're waiting for minor credential requirements, so I see that number is definitely going to increase. We are continuing that goal onto the 24-25. We also attended the Chico State Job Fair, which we were able to find a lot of teachers that were credentialed moving on. And being able to interview them and secure positions. We also were 100% proficient on our facilities review as well as our instructional materials. So overall, goal 1 was a success. As far as, and we are looking to keep that goal and improve it moving forward. Goal number 2, as we saw at the mid-year and we saw the scores from last year, we have some work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We discussed a lot of the area as far as with me coming into this position, analyzing what was going on my first year, seeing what we needed to do. 90% of our focus of our professional development was on DOJ work. And that's required by the settlement. So we were able to work with our negotiating partners, with our teachers, and we were able to negotiate our Wednesdays. So now we have training that's going to be shifted to about 80% professional development and curriculum and instruction, about 20% in DOJ. So we were able to negotiate that. So we really look forward to getting our tenants, getting our teachers more time to work at their data, to plan their lessons. We just didn't have the time built into our schedule to be effective at it. That's why we needed to negotiate those Wednesdays, and they will be structured, and that was part of the negotiating contract. We'll also have a lot of help with WestEd that will come in and help us as well with our professional development. So we'll be talking about that contract a little bit later. So we will be continuing goal number 2, but it will focus more on our PLCs and what we're going to be doing on specific trainings next year, because the district was able to secure a large amount of these specifically for district-driven professional development, which means we handle what happens on those days and we drive it. So I know that was a concern brought earlier, so we have addressed that. Goal number 3 was our school climate and safety. And we found growth across the board in this area, but it's one of those areas where we consistently have to make sure that we are meeting all of the judgments, that we are improving. There was some areas where our numbers have gotten better overall, but we can always improve. So we review that data, we go back over it, and that is part of our monthly meetings with principals when we review data, discipline data. We review suspension data. We review what type of, as far as what areas is it fighting? Is it, using inappropriate language? Is it not being where you're supposed to be outside of class? Things like that. We review and try to look at ways we can adjust security to meet those. So those areas are something that we discuss constantly. And we also break it down into our subgroups, our areas. Which subgroups specifically, is there a group that we're not taking care of enough that we need to have more attention and focus on? Those are discussions that consistently happen multiple times monthly.
Second, I saw a box way over there. And said paper made all over it. And,
And goal number 4, one of the
Same guy.
I don't care.
I'll get you that. Oh, you're gonna just keep going. I have two. No, you're not.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
And then the other part about goal number 4, deals with with goal number 4, it dealt specifically with our students with disabilities. And one of the bright spots about our data from last year was that our students with disabilities was one of the smaller subgroups that actually made growth that stayed equal and went above. So in those areas, we look at specifically incorporating those goals into number 2 as well as number 3. And with the creation of our equity multiplier, and I touched on this a little bit, the equity multiplier is designed for schools that have 3 or more years of not meeting standards, which means they're red on the dashboard if you see those colors. For 3 or more years. And then also they have to have a 25% transient rate, which means that when they start the year with 100 kids, only 75 of those 100 are still there at the end of the year. So 25% of the kids are gone from the beginning of the year to the end. So Ishii and Studios both, Ishii was literally right at 25%. They barely made it. Studios was closer to 30 on transiency, where kids are leaving. When they start the year, they don't end the year. So that automatically qualified them for equity multiplier, but along with that goal, we also have to, and you can see in the coming up on the contracts, you'll see threshold. That is the county assigned company that we have mentors assigned to both schools to work with the admin and the teachers to improve academic achievement, leadership, all the way across the board. Those are mandated by the county, and that contract is the part that we have to cover. And that is done through the equity multiplier money. So there's money that's allocated specifically for that to focus on those 2 schools. So that basically was the review of the 23-24 LCAP that led us up into the draft for the 24-25. Were there any questions?
Board have any questions?
I don't know if I'm in line with this or not, but in the future or currently, are there any plans or works for programs for students who do not need special assistance, or who are higher learners, or are I don't have the right words, higher performing students? Because what I've witnessed throughout the last 4 years on this board is that everything goes to the bottom. And I say bottom not in an offensive way, like it goes to carry them up, which they should. But what's happening is the kids at the top are ignored, left to just continue on with little support from the school sites or their teachers, because they're easy. I don't have to worry about you. Let me focus on this.
Yeah.
And what's happening is they are losing motivation and interest in school.
Board.
And they're getting bored. And they don't like school. Because why? For example, at the school site, why would I try to go out of my way to do something great, to earn a token, when I do it great every day and I don't earn a token? But these kids who are either in trouble or doing something terrible or not performing or something, and then get McDonald's every Friday,
Right.
because they didn't throw a chair this week. Where is the attention for the students who are carrying our schools well and themselves? Where is the attention for them?
And to piggyback off of her, they're at the top, they're bored, then they wind up on Swiss.
Or at a different school entirely.
Because they want to get that attention, or they just got so bored that now they're getting in trouble, so now they're getting the attention.
So moving forward, I would like to make this something to be aware of. Because most of the focus, if not all of it, is on trying to bring up or nurture behavior that is negative. They're getting the red flags, and that's where everything goes. But there is a huge group of students who are just floating on by. Where's their
Even the
recognition?
ones who are acting out, who've never gotten any good grades, are not being supported to the point where we know they can get the grades that they, because they are smart enough. It's just that they're not being recognized.
I just witnessed firsthand these things that are happening, like a classroom was cleared of screaming children with a poor substitute. I felt so bad for her because the student was throwing chairs and books and grabbing everything they possibly could, throwing it across the room, and kids are screaming, and they evacuated the room. And 20 minutes later, I walked out of the classroom and the student was gifted with a McDonald's lunch at a picnic table outside. That's what's happening. So anyway, I don't know if I'm in line or not, but that's what I have to say about that.
I wanted to make sure that you were done before I commented. As far as when we're talking about student achievement, you're absolutely right. We have all gamuts at schools. We have kids that are, and as a father of 4 children, each one of my kids was on a different area. I had one of my children that was gate qualified, that was off the charts, could read a book and learn anything, didn't really need a teacher. I also had children that needed extra help in school. And every student is individual and what they need. As teachers, what my goal is coming here is to be able to institute the idea of differentiated instruction. The tenets of differentiated instruction mean that we meet every student in our classroom where they are. And that means that we have students that are gifted. We need to challenge them. They need as much work as the students that need the extra work to catch up. As a teacher, we are tasked with taking care of every teacher and every student in our classroom, no matter what level they are. Special ed, GATE, second language, which makes teaching very difficult.
Very.
But what we have to do as administrators and as the assistant SUPA curriculum instruction is train those teachers to be able to meet the needs of all their students. That is our goal moving forward. That is our professional development plan. We will, because of the request that you made tonight, I will have discussions with my admin about our GATE program and our high achievers to make sure that when we do spend the majority of our discussion about students that need extra help, that we don't forget about those students as well. I appreciate that. I appreciate your input and your passion for it, and I hear you 100%. And I want you to know that that is never lost in our planning for our students. Every student that we serve needs to get what they need to be successful. And that is where the idea of some of our kids need a little more attention. Some of them need more supports, mental health, behavior support. Not every student is equipped the same way. So sometimes looking at things from a face value or from a distance, sometimes we can have situations like you referred to where they look where they are at, but we also are responsible for them as well. And sometimes that doesn't look as easy as just saying you need to do something and they'll do it. Sometimes that's where the DOJ got involved with our district because we were lacking in those areas. So those are part of what we do as well. And those are all, a lot of what we're doing is dictated based on our training and what we're being taught. So, but from a distance, I fully respect your view of what you're seeing and your frustration. Academically, our students need to be taken care of where they're at. Behaviorally, it's very difficult. We have students that come to school every day and know exactly what they're going to do and never teacher do their work, listen to their lessons, do their homework, do exactly what, never get in trouble at recess, never get in trouble at lunch. And then we have other kids that don't know what following rules mean. And sometimes those are the students that take a lot of our time. But we are, you know, we can't forget the students that are doing what they're supposed to either. So I respect that part. So thank you.
Thank you.
There any more questions from the board? Okay, we'll continue on to 6B, 2024-25 local control and accountability plan.
So this is our draft moving forward, and I talked quite a bit about the different goals moving forward. As far as what each goal was gonna look like. We had numerous meetings with our stakeholder groups, our parent groups. Our equity multiplier, each of the Ishii Hills and Studios at Central each have their own goals, so we had to meet with their schools and their communities and administrators individually. We also had our supportive school climate advisory committee, which is our group that talks. We got input from them as well. We had a CSEA, which we met with our classified union to discuss their input, go through each of the goals, tell us what they think we should keep, what we should change. We did that with the teachers as well. The biggest thing about the teachers is they're very big on keeping our specialists that work with the teachers and support them in the ELA areas. That was big, and you've seen them come to the board a couple of times and talk about what they're doing. So that was a big part of OETA being a part of that. We also met with BCOE monthly, and even more, I met with them, you know, individually as well. We also had them do a first review of this before bringing it to the board with updates based on their recommendations, and there still maybe more. And the whole thing is this template this year is brand new. And they're requiring an exorbitant amount of work compared to the previous templates. We have to have action steps that reflect any area that we're lacking in, which any of those red areas on the dashboard, which our district currently has a few, and all of our action steps have to base back to what those areas are. So there's been in all of our action steps and goals, and you can see that on the LCAP, they all focus on those areas where we're lacking. The subgroups and the specific content areas, suspension, and those areas. So goal number 1 is mostly unchanged, and it deals with the hiring of teachers, the maintenance, and ensuring that we have appropriate Williams. So goal number 1 is relatively unchanged. Goal number 2 was updated to reflect areas and subgroups of needed improvement, as I just referred to. LCAP goal 2 is to improve student achievement. The achievement gap will be lessened and student achievement increases among all students, including foster youth, special education, socially economic disadvantaged, and EL students in the areas of math and ELA. So there were no deletion of positions. I want to make sure that everybody knows that going into next year. There was not any removal of coaches, specialists, any of the positions that we added previously. We're able to maintain them for 1 more year. Those may come up during budget discussions at the end of next year. Goal number 3 and 4 are our new Ishii Hills and Studios at Central equity multiplier goals. And the qualifiers was what I had mentioned before about the 25% more and 3 or more years. Each of the principals will have a coach and trainer to support them. And we will also be scheduling specific professional development in the areas of at both schools. Our homeless populations are not scoring well. So we're looking at implementing some homeless training for our staffs to be able to support our students that are qualified as homeless. And McKinney-Vento is the other term you will hear for people. McKinney-Vento. It's an assembly bill that basically provides services and support for students that are homeless.
What's the definition that they're using of homeless?
It would be somebody that does not have an actual residence, is living with a family member, or is basically like your couch people that are sleeping on the couch of friends, that it's not a permanent residence and don't have any utilities or an address in their name or a rental agreement, anything like that.
So they're not technically unhoused, they are just, they don't have a lease in their name.
Exactly. And that's from the state, that's not a
Yeah.
local, yeah. All right, so goal number 5 was goal number 3 from the previous LCAP. The district will improve school safety and demonstrate a strengthened social and emotional learning program for all students in OCESD. This goal will maintain the current levels of security, administrative and supervision support from the previous year, no deletions, which means the assistant principals will remain at the middle school. And as well as the extra campus supervision we've been able to provide at the middle schools. And if approved this evening by the board, PLC revitalization professional development will be provided by WestEd for district-wide implementation. And the initial draft review meeting and updates from BCOE were included in the drafts in tonight's meeting.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Okay, we'll go to 6C, 2024-25 local control funding formula, LCFF budget overview for parents.
All right, so the budget overview for parents is an add-on. So when you think about the LCAP and the original budget have to ride together. Okay, they have to match up. And one of the things that is required is a budget overview for parents that provides specific information to parents in a real abbreviated format. Still, it's 3 or 4 pages long. I went through the budget overview for parents and pulled out the pie charts and things just to show you the type of information that we're looking at. One of the things that is important to share is our funding. You can see the big Pac-Man is LCFF funds. And then we have state, federal, and local funds that make up the rest of our budget on a whole. We have the budgeted expenditures in the LCAP make up 10 million and change. Then the total budget for the entire general fund is that 40 million. So people can see when we're talking about the LCAP, what portion of the budget we're talking about. It's about a quarter of the budget. And then this is the update on increase or improve services and how much we spent on last year's LCAP or this 23-24's LCAP. We had planned on spending 7.7 million, ended up paying or spending 7.6 million. And that deficiency had to do with positions that were unable to fill or positions where somebody had left and there was a gap of time before we were able to fill a position. So it wasn't anything like we were stopped doing a particular task. It was just, that's kind of how it's been with hiring. So we intended to have those, we didn't have them. So that's what's in the budget overview for parents. It's fairly abbreviated. If you have questions about the budget overview for parents, it's something that we'll put on the webpage and make available. And again, it sort of melts down the LCAP and the budget into some whole numbers for people to kind of grab onto a little bit.
Does the board have any questions?
Is there any funding that comes from the LCAP to support the VAPA programs at studios?
So the visual and performing arts programs at the studios, pieces of it can be funded through the LCAP. It just depends on pieces. The LCAP is designed to be supplemental materials, not core. So if you had a core part of your curriculum, that part couldn't be funded via the LCAP. But if you had some extra, that part could be. Additionally, we have that Prop 28 that passed the last election that provides arts money. That also supplies funds for the visual performing arts program at the studios. We just today, Troy and I met with Vince Chung, the principal at the studios, and talked in depth about the visual and performing arts program. We're going to our 3rd year, I believe, or 3rd year of that program, which is where we should see it fully operational. And so we talked about some ideas about how to get it really well formalized. And he had his plan of the different pieces that he wanted. But again, a lot of the arts funds comes from, because Prop 28 passed, there's a pool of arts funding. So they have those funds there, but also, when you think about how the visual performing arts program is arranged, it replaced the electives that were in that school with art electives. So part of it was already paid for, it just, instead of it being this elective, it's an arts-based elective. So it's not a huge amount of money that costs to run a visual performing arts program, it's just different types of staff.
Have we seen any increased enrollment because of this, or because that was one of the things that this is going to increase enrollment and going to do these other things? Has any of those things happened, or are we considering this? We can't say it's a bust, but where are we at with that? Just and this may be off topic. If it is, we can talk about it later.
I don't have that information, but what I can do is we can get that information and provide something to the board as a presentation. Where we can have that full discussion, because I will say parts of putting together the visual performing arts program had to do with putting together the appropriate dance facility, the appropriate theater facility, and we're still in the process of putting those pieces together. And then you start running this program. So I would think we would want to look at, do we have it ready and operational? And then you would start to hopefully see the benefits going forward. Because we're still kind of in that implementation
It
phase.
just needs more time.
I would think so.
Coming together.
But again,
not there yet.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth having the discussion. So I'll put in my notes to bring that back with some information, especially as we start to flesh out. Because we were just discussing it today, how we need to formalize and finalize that program so we know specifically what's going on, what's being taught and everything, and it's a easy to run type of system, whereas before we're building it, right? You're like, oh, well, we needed this piece and that piece, putting it together. Now that it's together, we need to be able to use it.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Okay, we'll move on to 60 original budgets for the 2024-25 fiscal year.
That. See that transition? There it is. The original budget. The legislature just passed a version of the budget that they call a placeholder budget. I didn't realize this was a choice. I'm just gonna do that going forward. Where I don't have to make any decisions, I'm just gonna say, I'll fix it later. So this budget has been clouded from the beginning with strange gimmicks, concerns. Our state budget had a really bad year this year when it came to taxes. And the state budget didn't really provide any way to really collect that back, except for being kind of overly optimistic that if we just sort of punt, the next couple of years will pick up the difference, sort of the idea. So the legislature, when it got down to it, we're kind of like, we gotta fix some things. I will say to our governor's credit, he's tried very hard to not make major cuts to schools. There were some minor cuts to schools when it came to some facilities programs and things. The legislature passed a budget that does not have their final version of what those cuts to schools and things might look like. But they passed it so they can keep getting their paychecks through the summer. They all go on vacation now. So what we do know is the cost of living increase was originally slated at 4 or 5%. And then as these budgets started coming in, it started getting lower and lower, and now it's about 1% of a COLA. For our sake, when you think about a COLA, that's how much more money we get on LCFF, which you saw was 75% of that wheel. If it's under 2%, because 2% is about the number of kids we lose. When you think about the math problem, it's how many kids are in school, how much money you get, and how much is the COLA, and multiply the three things together. So if your COLA is less than 2%, and we're losing 2% of kids, we're losing money. So in this case, you lose just straight out of the gates. You're losing 1%. So compared to the prior year, just without any of the other machinations of LCFF. There are some fail safes in place, but it's, when you have these low COLA years, it really puts us in a bad spot because we're bringing in less money. And, we're hopeful that the projected COLAs in the budget are 3% or more, which means, hey, it'll start to flatten out. But having 1% COLA is pretty bad for us, but it's not catastrophic. I do have concerns about what's gonna happen to the budget if the very rosy projections that the state has put out for the budget don't come true. Then I think we might have more of a problem to deal with. The good news is our budget has a lot in reserves. Which is what we've been sort of trying to build up, knowing that at the end of COVID, we knew something was gonna happen. We knew that this ride was gonna be a roller coaster that goes up and down. So using reserves, we'll be able to meet all of our needs for the next few years and pay for the deficit spending via reserves. Until we try to flatten it back out, where we get to less deficit spending. When we do talk about original budget, we're talking about, a budget based on the May revision, so that the budget I presented is based on what I had in May from the governor. None of the federal or other state stuff is in yet, so this is a very broad projection. It tends to be a bit conservative. I don't have a lot of information. In December, I think it's in December, I'll bring you the first interim budget, which is really the operational budget for the year. Because I'll have the actual, what the budget is, and have all the information I need to have an actual budget that makes sense. So the COLA is 1.07%. Again, enrollment drops by about 2% a year. This last year dropped by a little bit more than that. And that's something that has been the story I've been telling the entire time I've worked here. We're down to, 1,800 ADA, which is your average daily attendance. Enrollment's down below 2,000. So we're starting to really sink, and we're hoping that there's a bottom somewhere where we can start to flatten out and start to pick kids back up.
Where are you seeing the most? Or is it pretty even across from the elementary to the middle
We
schools?
lose a lot of kids going to middle school.
Right,
Where do they go?
to other middle schools.
Other middle school.
Like where? Curiosity.
Palermo. Palermo, so when you think about Palermo, a third of the kids that go to Palermo live in our district. Palermo makes all their money off of stealing kids out of our district. Same thing, Bangor has a bus that comes into our district, picks kids up and takes them to Bangor. Thermalito used to do the same thing, but they're kind of having to cope with, their city is growing up, or their district's growing up and having, they're not really able to cherry pick students like they were. They're gonna have to deal with some new issues. So that's less of an issue, but Thermalito also took kids from our district. And Stream, of course, the whole purpose of Stream was not the public school, right? It was the alternative that people wanted in Oroville. So obviously for us, we know that the junior high is crucial to us. And we know that our ADA, our enrollment overall would be better if we can get more people excited to go to our junior high programs. It would be better all throughout our elementary levels, but also once we get to junior high, we wouldn't have that drop where kids are like, hey, we're out of here. I'm gonna go to Durham. I'm gonna go wherever. But it's a challenging, difficult thing. We're hopeful that if we can get some stability administratively at Issue and Central, get the visual and performing arts program operational at Central, and some of the facilities things we're doing, we're hopeful to start to try to offer programs people are more interested in doing. Also, we've been talking to the leadership at Issue about some different programmatic things they want to offer there that would be unique, that people are interested and excited to go do. Also, when we talk about the bond, if we're able to pass a bond, so lots of things have to happen. You have to vote for it. The people of Warville have to vote for it. We're able to expand at Ishii and build another wing of classes. Ishii isn't always full, but can get full, like Stanford can get full. Ophir is always full. Ishii can get full, and you have to say, hey, yeah, we don't have enough seats for you. Expanding Ishii would make it so we'd have a more attractive junior high program, because more people could go there and maybe fill it up. And feel like, hey, this is a way we can get there. And also we would have to evaluate the feeder schools that feed Ishii just naturally. Right now, it's just Stanford. It was Stanford and Byrd that are the schools that feed into Ishii. I'm not saying we would change that, and it would require a committee, and I'm not gonna wade into that water, but we would have to look at that as well, because it wouldn't be enough students being fed into Ishii to fill it. So there's some things that we're working on. Honestly, Dr. Holtham, Troy and I talk about junior high just about every other time we meet. So
But yeah, I mean, amplifying the programs available is really the best place to start, because idle hands are the devil's handiwork. And I'm gonna tell you the reason why most students don't want to go to Ishii and Central is because of the behavioral problems.
And I get that.
And they're, you know,
We saw it on the news this
right,
last year.
all of the things. So yeah, it would be really good to put a lot of focus on nurturing those schools and those programs.
Yeah, and I'll say there are behavioral issues at our schools. I 100% agree with that. I'm not gonna agree that it's any different anywhere else.
Right.
Even Stream, now that leadership has changed, is starting to really have an issue because they don't have the ability to handle those problems.
And that's what I don't want our district to lose. I don't want us to lose the ability to handle those problems.
Right, so
You know, so we need to make sure that the spotlight is focusing on staff support, right? Because are they just all gonna leave because if they're being pushed, you know, too far? We don't want that. We want them to stay and feel supported, and we want our teachers to support us and our district and our kids, right? So just making sure that we're putting the light in the right spot, and I know we will. I know you are.
right, and I think also as we're developing plans and strategies and we're starting to getting to the tail end of the Department of Justice stuff.
Yeah.
That part's gonna help us a lot.
Yeah.
And we're talking about all the different ideas we can. One of the things that we had a frustration with was we had an alternative ed program that we're starting up. But because we're in the settlement times, the Department of Justice wanted to go ahead and develop that for us. It collapsed immediately, didn't work. Teacher quit, you know, because it was not a non-starter, it didn't work out the way it should. But we're hopeful that in the future we'll be able to make something that's more appropriate. That the educational professionals decide is the appropriate thing to make, not
California Department of
Assistant
Justice.
District Attorneys. Because they're very intelligent people, but I cannot say that they're educators.
Yeah.
So this is a critical discussion.
Yeah.
We know this is critical,
Mhm.
and the enrollment trajectory of our district depends on what happens at our middle schools. That's why I look at this bond and go, if I could expand Ishii and get a really good program there, and get things really dialed in, and get people excited to go there, it could change everything. And that could be not necessarily a silver bullet, but that could be a very important part of the solution going forward.
Yes.
So yeah, the multi-year projection uses close to 3% COLAs in the 2 out years, which I hope come true. Although I think they're a bit Pollyanna, but we'll see. I will say that the economy has been, you know, in this constant state of inflation. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. It seems like people are leaving California in droves. And most of the money that pays for schools comes from people's income tax, especially the wealthy people. So as those people leave, so goes our money. We do have deficit spending in years 2 and 3 in our multi-year projection. Again, we're working on trying to find ways to change our trajectory. And hopeful that this budget holds up. We're able to meet all of our needs and for the 3 years plus a few more years with reserves. So we're in a pretty good place right now. Because we have collected reserves effectively. And we're be able to meet all of our obligations, so it's a positive 3-year budget. Any more questions about the budget?
I'd like to say thank you for staying firm on the reserves and anticipating that many, many years ago. Knowing that something was going
Well, I think we
to be
all,
needed for that,
2009.
because there were questions.
No, I know, but
There were questions about
The
why
last
it was
recession.
so, yeah.
the last recession really burnt us.
It came
and
through.
There were a lot of lessons learned.
yeah, the 06, 07, I'll never forget going into a budget meeting. I was at the county office. And meeting with the person and telling them, hey, I've got to cut your program by 20%, which when all of your programs are people. It's pretty brutal, getting a shoe thrown at me,
Oh, for real?
because it was that bad.
Mhm.
It was that bad. And yeah, you learn, hey, yeah, I know I take a lot of heat when we have reserves,
Mhm.
but when we need them and they're there,
You're not gonna get a
what it
shoe
does is
back.
it stretches out the amount of time you have to make cuts. So as you have more time to make cuts, you have a lot more options than if you have to make a cut for next year to solve a major problem.
Yeah.
So thank you for the kudos, and I'm just happy I have, work for you guys and everybody supports the budgeting the way I do it. So appreciate you guys as well.
Thank you so much. Does the board have any more questions?
Maybe the next LCAT, this next presentation could have a shoe on
Squeezing by.
it. Memorial remembrance.
Public comment section. Public comments on action items. The goal is then an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on items that are listed on the agenda. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, use the raise your hand button to be called on to speak. Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss or take action on any item that is not posted on the agenda. Do you have anything?
No, there's no public comments.
Going to the consent agenda.
Any questions on the consent agenda?
Can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no's? Any abstains? Pass it 4 votes. And new business, approve OCSD's workplace violence prevention program plan.
So the state of California created a new law saying that all businesses of a certain size, it's not a very big size, have to have a workplace violence prevention program plan. We worked through our workers' comp carrier. They hired a specialist who wrote a program where we could go through and customize it to our district. But pretty much put to life the plan, the way it exists. So I went ahead and customized the plan to fit for OCESD. Effectively, what this law and what this means is if an employee is the victim of violence or a threat of violence, we have to have a way for them to report that. And then it has to be investigated. And then it all has to be documented. The report, the documentation of the investigation. And it also gives the employer certain tools, like as an employer now, if we elected to, we could get a restraining order on someone's behalf. I don't, in my mind, envision a scenario where we would want to do that. The people that have had or needed restraining orders in the times I've worked here, have just gone ahead and got them. There's lots of domestic abuse supports out there. But it gives us that tool. It also gives that tool to our collective bargaining unions. So hopefully that won't become divisive. The key of our plan is we have a program called Stop It, which is a bullying reporting program that students are able to anonymously report bullying right now. Stop It, we've been working with them and they're offering, and they are implementing a reporting tool for us that won't be anonymous, but it'll be on everybody's computer and they can just, we'll have the QR codes and people can scan it and they can just go, oh, there was some guy just, threw a rock at me. I drove by, threw a rock at me. I can go scan the QR code, fill out my violence report, and then the appropriate administrator can go in and do the investigation in that same system. And then it all stays in that system so that it meets the criteria that are laid out by the state. It was either that or we'd have to invest in some other type of technology to maintain this, or do them on paper. So we felt, hey, it's probably best just Stop It can do it. We already have Stop It. It was no cost to us to use Stop It to do this. So that's what we're electing to do. When you think about violence towards staff, this does include violence between a student and a staff member. So if a student threatened violence to a staff member, they could go on there and report it. Or if they threatened, or if they actually committed a violent act, they could go on and report it. The employee could. So this is really an employee protection type program. It has a lot of very specific things the state wanted. So most of the plan as it exists isn't really negotiable or changeable. So we did our best to make it as easy for people as we could and as simple for people as we could. There's required training we're gonna have to do. And we're planning on doing that as required. But the first piece of this puzzle was to get a plan together, go get input from a number of stakeholder groups, which I went and did. I also had to develop a workplace violence prevention program committee that meets just before the safety committee meets. Happens to be the same people, but it's a separate committee because it's different. So all those pieces are in place. We'll be doing the training as soon as the Stop It system is available, and we'll have this checked off as desired by our legislature.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the OCSD Workplace Violence Prevention Program Plan? So moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any noes, abstained? Pass with 4 votes. Approve memorandum of understanding with OETA additional instructional minutes for grade 6.
So this was with the addition of our new assembly bill for California. They have required recesses to be 30 minutes every day. And we have kind of a unique situation because 6th grade at the middle school has recess, even though it's at the middle school. So we had to, with the implementation of the new assembly bill, it has to match the minutes of 4, 5, and 6 instructional minutes, even though it's at 6, 7, and 8. And they had to have either 15 minutes before lunch, 15 minutes after, or 30 minutes total. And in following everything that the assembly bill required of us, we had to add 2 instructional minutes to the day for 6th grade. So 6th grade will get out 2 minutes later than 7th and 8th grade. Because of the assembly.
And we did meet with OETA and negotiate this. And they just gave the minutes out. So they were like, fine, yeah, I just had the 2 minutes.
Oh, we appreciate that. We didn't have to.
Anybody have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with OET?
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Approved scope of work agreement, West Ed.
So this is our contract for our PLC facilitator. So this is the entire district. It's not just one school. This is the entire district. This summer, we will have an administrative retreat with our admin for 3 days. And when I say retreat, it just means we're meeting. We'll probably meet in this room. It's just kind of a historical thing to call it a retreat if we meet during the summer. But those 3 days will be driven by West Ed, which we will be talking about how we're rolling out specifically PLC to our teachers, what the expectations are gonna be, what we're gonna have our teachers be responsible for, what it's gonna look like, how we're gonna document all of that. And that leads us into the first day back. We will have our welcome in the morning, and then we will also have a district-wide PLC driven with West Ed that will also have our teachers have that information on what we're gonna be doing, hitting the ground running. Those Wednesdays are gonna be planned, they're gonna be focused, and they're gonna allow our teachers to have the time to focus on student achievement at all levels moving forward. So at that point, this is well planned, well focused, and will be district directed. I want to make sure the board knows that. That was a concern when we discussed this. That's what it is moving forward, and West Ed will be our partners in support with that.
Does the board have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the scope of work agreement with West Ed?
I make a motion that we approve the scope of work agreement with West Ed as presented.
Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any noes, abstain, pass with 4 yes votes. Approve special services agreement with Butte County Office of Education Leaders to Watch.
So Leaders to Watch is a organization that works with principals. And it's very similar to the process of how PBIS schools become gold, platinum, silver, how they move up having certain characteristics. So Leaders to Watch is the way that the principals are working with an organization. It's part of their differentiated assistance that comes for ISHE and studios. And what it does is it trains our principals to what high functioning middle schools do across the country. So they get a network with other schools and outside providers that can say, this is what schools, high achieving schools are doing. This is what needs to be happening at your school. And then the principals will bring that back to their school and also can be added to Leaders to Watch. What our goal is to get our schools up to a certain level, to get to that level and be recognized, so we can have our schools start being remembered for good things and recognized for good things, and hard work moving in the direction of improvement rather than negative actions. That's our goal.
Okay, does the board have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the special services agreement with the Butte County Office of Education Leaders to Watch?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Can I get a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Approve social services agreement with Butte County Office of Education Threshold Rising.
So Threshold Rising is the organization that was assigned to us by the county because we are in differentiated assistance. This is our coach, John Peterson is his name. And he met with our principal from Ishii Hills today, met with our principal from Studios at Central last week. So this is ongoing. Moving forward, Butte County is not covering the total cost. We are given equity multiplier money specifically that's supposed to do this area. So a percentage of that money that's allocated to Issuing Studios will be used for that. It's written into the LCAP. And this is the contract for the services of that. And to give you some background, this person, as I referenced, John Peterson has extensive background, has worked in some very difficult schools, has great results of turning schools around, has worked with some schools that have really been able to change the trajectory, the way schools have done, as far as improved behavior academically. So we really look forward to this partnership, even though it's kind of been pressed upon us. Everything that I've done, I just read an email earlier today from our principal, and they were so thankful of being able to work with someone with the experience that he has to be able to help. So it's a very positive experience. I just want to make sure that the board knows that it's not a forced situation. It's actually working out, I think, in a very positive way.
Does the board have any questions?
Is this going to, I mean, I keep seeing all these things, and I just have to keep wondering, is this gonna do anything for our test scores, or is this just gonna make us feel better about ourselves?
No, these are specifically academic related. These are ways that our schools can improve. Absolutely.
It's just sometimes, you know, not being an expert in this area with the names that are put on there, it's like, what exactly is this?
For sure. And I'll be happy to answer any of those questions you have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the special services agreement with the Butte County Office of Education, Threshold Rising?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Approve agreement with Thermalito Union Elementary School District Summer Food Service Program.
So in the past, the Butte County Office of Education has run the summer food services program that offered food to our ESY and summer school program. Their director retired, and BCOE said they weren't gonna be able to help us. So my director of coordinator of food services also retired. We just met Shari today, putting me in a bit of a pickle. So I reached out to Thermalito, and they were gonna be running their summer food program on their own. I asked if they would be so kind to help us. They said they would. So this is an agreement that for them to operate the summer food services program. We are using our kitchen and our staff for a good part of it at Stanford. And they're, you know, it's just that the administrative side of it requires an application and a lot of different things that without a coordinator sitting there all summer, I can't do. Going forward, I'm curious to see if BCOE is gonna pick back up what I feel is their responsibility to our county and run this program, or if they're going to collapse it. Conversations with them sounded like they aren't gonna do it going forward. And if that's the case, I'll be discussing what our options are with Mrs. Carrillo for next summer.
Does the board have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the agreement with Thermalito Union Elementary School District for the summer food service program?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Approved service agreement with Care Solace.
So Care Solace is an outside vendor that handles mental health services for students and families outside of school. They actually go to the homes so it's in-home counseling for families and students. And usually Care Solace works with families that have the appropriate insurance that is needed to be able to utilize their services. But as far as what the agreement does is it says that Care Solace is the county provider outside of the school, and that our agreement is that if we have students that need additional services, that we refer them to Care Solace. So it's just an agreement we do every year.
Does the board have any questions?
We approve this every year?
Yes,
We haven't had to pay for it, I don't believe,
Okay.
before.
Yeah.
They came out of after the campfire, they came into Butte County and they've always offered it for free.
Okay.
So if, let's say, the counselors have a kiddo who's saying, you know, or they have talked to a parent who says, I need some help with mental support, where do I go? Butte County doesn't take my insurance, they connect them with Care Solace,
Okay.
who finds them a provider that does take their insurance.
Okay.
So Care Solace doesn't actually do the service, they
No, they
connect them
find
with
them
the provider.
provider,
Okay.
they do a wonderful
Coordination of services.
handoff.
They're a broker.
Yes, and then they'll give us quarterly reports that we can bring and share with you of how many students and families they've supported. So last quarterly, the last month of school, I believe they had 30 students that they supported, finding providers for different things.
but they are considered the county for our area. The county separates certain areas, like Chico has a different group, and ours is Care Solace in this area, so.
Does the board have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve service agreement with Care Solace?
I make a motion that we approve the services agreement. The service agreement with Care Solace. as
Yes.
presented.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Noes? Any abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Adopt resolution 23-24-11 California State Preschool Program.
So this resolution allows Superintendent Holtum to sign contract documents for the preschool for the 23-24 school year.
And do you have any questions?
No, I think I understand.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Adopt resolution 23-24-12 California State Preschool Program.
This is the same thing, but more violence because it's the sequel. No, it is to allow Superintendent Holtum to sign for the California State Preschool Program for the 24-25 school year.
Can I get a motion?
I need some clarification. So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Adopt resolution 23-24-13 resolution ordering governor board member election.
So this and the next few items have to do with the upcoming election for board members. So this is the first piece, calling for an election.
It's not clear.
And the 3 candidates up are Miss Jessica Anthony, Miss Kay Sander Barnes, and Miss Sharon Nelson.
Can I get a motion to adopt resolution 23-24-13?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Adopt resolution 23-24-14 resolution establishing procedure in case of tie vote at governing board election.
So it just states that if there is a tie, a lot, it will be decided by lot.
The joke goes out in the parking lot, mud or
I'll
jello.
be in charge of the choices. I'll decide what it is. No, it's just the standard sense.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Noes, abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Adopt resolution 23-24-15 resolution regarding cost of candidate statements.
So again, this talks about the candidates will pay their pro rata share of the costs associated with putting their statement in the voter bank.
And that's still like 350 or something.
I think it was 300 last time.
But it's a pro rata share, so it's not defined as a number, it's defined as a concept.
Well, that's wildly esoteric, but okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wish they would tell us, you know, it's
Completely
$300,
tangential.
it's gonna be close enough, but they're not gonna do that. So.
Can I get a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes, abstain, pass with 4 yes votes. Approve job description.
So we have 2 job descriptions and some, and a kind of salary schedule and MOU that have to do with updating the superintendent, the secretary to the superintendent and the executive assistant for human resources. These are some job descriptions that haven't been looked at since I was probably in high school.
Wow.
So long time ago. So we've been spending a lot of time on going through some of these archaic, no longer relevant job descriptions, changing them, updating them to what makes more sense for today's environment. So that's what with this one, it happens to be the reclassifying the confidential position of executive assistant to the superintendent human resources. So that's the first one.
Can I get a motion to approve the job description?
Make a motion that we approve the job description as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Noes, abstaining, pass with 4 yes votes. Approve job description.
So this is the secretary to the superintendent position. It also is of a similar age. Or vintage, I don't know how to, it's quite a ways back. Has been rewritten. It's gone from probably 1 paragraph to 4 pages, so.
Can I get it? Can I get a motion to approve the job description?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any noes, abstaining, pass with 4 yes votes. On to approve memorandum of understanding.
So this is a memorandum of understanding between the district and Kim Felder. Kim Felder is a confidential employee, so she isn't technically in a bargaining group, so she bargains for herself. So she met with the district, and this was the agreement as her job description was changed and job duties were changed. This was the agreement that was reached.
Does the board have any questions?
Was it a very contentious discussion?
Chairs were thrown, shoes were thrown. Yeah,
Being to her.
I ran out the door.
How do you feel about it, Kim? Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Noes, abstain, pass with 4 yes votes. Approve revisions to the 2023-24 confidential, salary schedule.
So this has a movement of 1 job to a different column. That's the only change on the salary schedule. Having to do with the executive assistant of HR. Now makes the same as the executive assistant secretary position.
Does the board have any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the revisions to the 2023 confidential salary schedule?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You noes, abstain, pass with 4 yes votes. Waive first reading and adopt board policy, approve administrative regulations.
So this is updating our board policy in response to the need for highly qualified teachers. After COVID, we had an update on how we could hire teachers with specific lack of credentials, but there's different waivers and different things we can do. The board just has to do their highly qualified need form that we've done already, that we do every year. And we're just updating and catching up with the board policy to reflect what's truly happening.
Does the board have any questions? Can I get a motion to waive the first reading and adopt board policy, approve administrative regulation?
Go ahead. So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Business and finance. Review 2024 to 25 consolidated application spring data submission.
So the consolidated application is how we apply for and report specific federal funds. These funds include Title I, which is a supplemental supports for students getting help with test scores. Title II, which is teacher quality, we use that to pay for teacher salaries. Title III, which is English language learners, so our English language learner program is funded partially by Title III, not mostly. And also Title IV, which are some additional funds for things like technology in the classroom as they support students who need additional supports. The consolidated application comes out twice a year. So you see a spring one and a fall one of these. You don't have to take any action. Just making you aware that we are applying for those funds yet again this year. And we're doing all of our appropriate reporting on time. Any questions about the consolidated application?
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we're gonna move on. There's no action need to be taken at this time. Accept bids for a pavement project at Ophir School.
So this is obviously a paving project over. And these are the bids that we received. We had no issues with any of the bids.
So again, this is for a paving project at Ophir.
It is in fact for,
Now to be clear.
it's at over and it's paving.
What portion?
I couldn't tell you that. But my,
The asphalt.
the pavement part.
Does the board have any other questions? Can I get a motion to accept the bids for a pavement project at Ophir School?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any noes? Abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes. Award the contract for pavement project at Ophir School.
So I'm not gonna go there, but yeah. So Brown General Engineering of Durham had the low bid, and that's who we recommend or accept for the paving project.
Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we award the contract for the pavement project at Ophir School as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Abstain? Pass with 4 yes votes.
I'm just so glad that the horse wasn't bothered.
Meeting is adjourned at 4:49.